Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of The Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me today is Craig DeLuz of The Rundown. Craig, thanks for joining us today, man.
Dude, man, you know I love hanging out with you, bro. So let's make it happen. Let's make the magic happen.
All right, well, happened yesterday just after we went off air. I think he was waiting until after we went off air because he couldn't imagine not watching The Bullet. Just after The Bullet signed off, the governor of Indiana signed constitutional carry into law. It will be the law of the land. I believe it's come July 1st in Indiana, constitutional carry takes effect.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal thing, and especially considering the fact that there was a lot of pressure on him from law enforcement agencies, in particular from the some of the big city police chiefs and some of the union bosses, as well as even the quote unquote the top cop there in the state of Indiana, was really pushing for them to get rid of to not support this particular legislation. I am glad to see that he went with liberty over the folks who are seeking to subvert our fundamental rights.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it was really a debate on whether they were going to, whether he was going to sign it or not, because he was really running from it. He was all legislative session long. He was pushing the Senate, do not send this to me. I want to run for the U.S. Senate. He was telling his friends in the state Senate, don't send this to me. I don't want to have to either sign it or veto it. I don't want to have to deal with this when I run for U.S. Senate. And eventually they were getting so much pressure, they just sent it to him anyway. And he went and signed it. I wish good for him.
Yes, no, exactly. Because ultimately, and I think you look at it, and there's a number of other stories that I think we're going to cover today that show that the arguments that are made by law enforcement, that were made by law enforcement here in India, in Indiana, are a bunch of hooey, saying that, well, if people have the right to conceal carry and they don't need a permit, we're not going to know if a bad guy has a gun. Well, if you are dealing with a bad guy, meaning you're dealing with someone who you have detained because they have done something worthy of being detained, you're going to be able to know real quick whether or not they are prohibited or not. And if they are in possession of a firearm and they are prohibited, sounds to me like you don't need a whole lot of. It sounds to me like you don't need you got exactly what you need to be able to determine whether or not they should possess a firearm.
Yeah. Now there are still, by my count, and this is not the official count. I don't have the pulse of the entire nation at my fingertips. But by my count, there are still 3 states where it's theoretically possible we could get constitutional carry yet. Georgia still has an active legislature. They're still, and the governor says he wants it. They have to be wrapped up in their legislature by March 31st. Nebraska, same thing. Their legislature has to be wrapped up by April 30th.
Right. And so, yeah, there's a few more, and it'll be nice to see this thing. It'll be nice to see this thing happen in those states. Anyway, it'll be nice to see that happen.
And the last one, and I would, if I were a betting man, I would bet my entire next month's paycheck this will not happen this year. Maryland has a bill in the legislature for constitutional carry. I would bet my entire paycheck next month that they will not get it this year. But it's there. There is a bill in the legislature. It's stalled in a House committee. I'm pretty sure it's going to die there. And they've got until April 11th when their legislature has to.
Yeah, who doesn't expect that to? Well, exactly. And it's, once again, it's one of the biggest challenges you have is you got Republicans who are, you got the law and order Republicans, and then you have the liberty-minded Republicans. And unfortunately, not all of the law and order Republicans are interested, or for them, they listen to law enforcement when law enforcement says, it's probably more worth it to infringe on people's liberties in order to protect them. And unfortunately, I think any liberty-minded individual knows that, no, if you are willing to take away my liberty in order to provide me security, then I am actually going to have neither.
Absolutely. Let me hit the right button here. We're this is a little bit of a live experiment. I all the time have a digital background behind me. And this is the first time we're trying it with both me and Craig, and so it's a little bit of an adjustment here. So I've got things that we're doing on the fly and making adjustments, but I think we're we're making things happen all right here. Getting conversation from our listeners in here, and Kevin Sona says one more free state added to the list. Craig, I honestly, sticking with the constitutional carry conversation, two things. I think we could end up with half of the states. I think we could end up with either Nebraska or Georgia by the end of the year. I think we could end up with 25 by the end of the year. And right now, speaking population-wise, there are just as many in constitutional carry states population-wise as there are in may issue states throughout the nation.
Right. Well, and one has to wonder, states like Florida, by the way, which is where Kevin is from, it is sad that they do not have it, especially with all that they've got going on there and the red wave that they've seen, and having Captain Florida there. You would think that they would have it by now, and I see Kevin, and in the comments he's like, hey, Florida's got a plan for next year. Well, let me tell you, Kevin, everyone's got a plan till they get hit in the mouth, and y'all keep getting hit in the mouth, man. What's up?
Yeah,
come on, y'all got that big. Y'all got you have Captain Florida on your side. This ought to happen.
And I will say this to my friends in Florida, and I've got a lot of friends in Florida. I've traveled down to Florida to help MC their open carry. They have an open carry event every year. I've traveled down to MC that. I've spoke at that thing before, and I really do enjoy interacting with our friends down in Florida. Heck, you joined me down there last year, Craig.
I've been there. I've been there the last 2 years that they had it. Yeah, it was a phenomenal event.
I'll say this: if you're tired of your representatives not pushing for constitutional carry, of not getting these pro-freedom bills going forward, run against them. Get them primaried. Yep. You don't have to win. All you've got to do is get 10 or 15% of the vote. Believe me, they're going to notice.
Yes, they will. Yes, they will. And call them out on it. Because here's the thing, especially the Republicans, they assume that because they have an R after their name, that whatever they think is pro-gun, because they're a Republican. And it's time for the people in the gun rights community to let them know, no, this is pro-Second Amendment means I have a fundamental right that you cannot infringe on. So don't support legislation that infringes on my rights. And any law that is currently on the books that infringes on my rights, you need to support efforts to change those laws. And if you do not, if you don't speak out against laws that infringe upon our fundamental rights, then you are in fact part of the problem. If you don't vote for legislation that overturns those laws that infringe upon our rights, you are part of the problem, and you need to go.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and by the way, and you know this, Paul, I am a card-carrying member of the vast right-wing conspiracy. But I didn't become a Republican because I liked Republicans. When I became a Republican, all my friends were Democrats. This is back in college. But I became a Republican because I believe in the values. And when Republicans don't stand for the values upon which our party and, by the way, our nation are founded, as far as I'm concerned, you are not a Republican. You are a jackass in an elephant suit, and you need to go.
Well, and I'm going to shock a lot of people here. I've said it on the air before, but if you're just catching us for the first time, I am a Republican, but I'm a Republican in name only. I'm I'm a Republican. I'm a registered Republican. I'm more libertarian myself. I believe in you. That's what I believe in. I believe you know what's best for you. So,
Right.
let me get this comment in here real quick. Roderick says it took Indiana almost 10 years for constitutional carry passage. That's absolutely very true. And I'm very grateful that it finally has come to the Hoosier state. And it's Nebraska, it's taken, this is their third serious attempt at it. I think they may get it. The jury's still out, but it's not something that happens right away in every state. But one other thing, and this is not in show notes, this happened just a few hours ago. The law actually has been on the desk of our governor for a while. Kristi Noem, the governor of South Dakota, today signed the law that when it takes effect on July 1st, all permits in South Dakota were already a constitutional carry state, but all permits, the zero is going to be our cost going forward. No fingerprinting fees, no fees for the permit. It's not going to cost us anything to exercise our constitutional rights.
Right. So which means there's no cost barrier. So you don't have to be like in places like California where every 2 years you got to pay $100 fee. And then you also have to go take a class that's going to cost you a couple of $100 in order to be able to exercise a fundamental right. That's not going to be the case there for you guys. So congratulations on that.
Yeah. Well, if you want the enhanced permits, you get the reciprocity with other states, and you get to go into the gun store and cash and carry whatever firearm you'd like. You still do have to take a class, and of course you have to pay for the class, but you do not have to pay for fingerprinting. You do not have to pay for the other stuff to the government. And then I have no problem with paying for a class because, hey, I'm probably going to learn something. And
that's the thing. But the only challenge with concealed carry permit classes is most of the time, a lot of the classes, the overwhelming majority of it is the law, helping you understand and know when is it appropriate for you to use force and when is it not. That's the biggest thing. And in the renewal classes, I've had cases with my renewal classes where it was me and another guy. We both had our permits for over a decade. And the guy was like, asked us a few basic questions, and it turned into a handgun class. And that I really enjoyed. So, almost like some private, some time of private 4 hours of private instruction, it turned into a phenomenal class. But, generally in a lot of these classes, you don't get enough. And by the way, folks, if you're taking a concealed carry class, don't go for the lowest rung. Don't go for the cheapest class. Take a class where you're actually going to learn, how to use your firearm. You're actually going to learn how to be safe with your firearm. You're actually going to learn how to be productive. And oh, by the way, you're going to know and understand use of force law in your state.
Yeah, absolutely. I've taken and when I say I don't mind paying for a class, I'm probably going to learn something. I've taken entry-level classes, many, many, many times. I've taken advanced classes many times as well, but every time I go back and take entry-level classes, I still end up learning something. So even though I've taken more advanced classes, it's not like when I go back to entry-level classes, I just waste my time.
No, sometimes we always need some fine-tuning on our fundamentals.
Absolutely. Our next story that I want to talk about a little bit, this came out, Cam Edwards wrote this up on Bearing Arms. It seems like constitutional carry passed last year in Texas, but it seems like it's not stopping the law enforcement from going ahead and arresting people who really shouldn't be possessing. I mean, felons in possession. If you're a felon and you still are carrying around firearms, police are still arresting people for that.
Well, and that was the point that Mike and I have talked about this more than a few times is you have these these union bosses. You have when I say by mean police union bosses, you have these people who run these either sheriff's departments or city departments there in urban communities that are either liberal or controlled by liberals, and they're always coming back saying, "Oh, well, you're putting cops at risk." And that's their kind of their go-to argument, right? They're saying, well, we don't know who's allowed to carry guns and who's not allowed to carry guns. Well, first of all, keep in mind, it doesn't change who is allowed to carry a gun. Or if you are a prohibited person, it doesn't make it legal for that prohibited person to be able to carry a firearm. Now, if you come across somebody who is committing a crime or is doing something that is leading you to the point where you need to detain them, well, then at that point, you can determine whether or not they're prohibited or not. And if they are, and they're in the possession of a firearm, well, guess what? You arrest them. Now, here's what you can't do. If you see someone and you believe that they are concealed carrying a firearm, you do not get to just stop them and ask them who they are and are they illegally carrying. Because see, here's the thing. What these guys are doing is they want to train their cops that if someone has a gun, they're automatically a bad person. And therefore, if they are a bad person, then we can then that is all you need. That's the only thing you need in order to stop that person, right? That's what they're saying. That's what they want to do. But here's the thing, folks. If you're concealed carrying, and just because you are in possession of a firearm, then you are not a bad person, right? You are not an evil person. You are not breaking the law. In particular, if you have a permit.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, now someone who's constitutional carrying, they cannot just assume that you are breaking the law. And that's the key. That's the thing they don't want to tell you is they want to say that only cops are the only good guys with guns. That's what a lot of these now, I'm not saying this is the average cop saying this. I'm saying this is what these higher ups, these union bosses, these people who are controlled by liberal city councils are telling you.
Are you listening, Minneapolis Police Department? And for some reason, my software is not picking up right now the Facebook comments that are happening, and there are a lot of comments happening on Facebook. So I'm not going to be able to put them on screen, but I want to get in from one from Charlie Chambers. He says, woke St. Louis DA refuses to charge armed robbery suspect who tried to carjack marked police car and pointed gun at officers inside. Wow.
Now, you know what's funny about that? I'll tell you what's funny about that. When they pointed the gun at him, if one of those officers had shot that individual, I'll bet you they'd have charged that officer.
You know what? No bet there. I think you're right. I think you're right.
That's pretty much a given, knowing these folks.
And then he also says, hello, Grandpa DeLuz. I was seeing some of that on social media, man.
Yes, I am a grandfather for the second time. My son and his beautiful wife had a beautiful, beautiful little baby girl. Her name is Sophia Marie DeLuz. She is just so beautiful. As a matter of fact, my new profile picture has me, my wife, and my two granddaughters. The only women in my life that are not on there are my mother-in-law, my daughter, and my daughter-in-law. But those are three loves of my life.
Very, very cool. I want to go ahead and if I could, I want to go to we've got one rather large Second Amendment story, and that is we've got hearings going on in the Senate right now. We've got this Jackson Brown, who's going to be possibly, she's up for confirmation to replace one of the Supreme Court justices. And, I'm really concerned. I got to admit, I've not been watching the confirmations hearings today. I was really strongly warned by my cardiologist about my blood pressure, and I was told to keep calm as much as possible. So I've not been watching confirmation hearings. But you brought this up to me earlier today, and I was reading this actually fairly short article off the Reload, and this Ketanji Brown Jackson, she's saying the right stuff, but she's really sidestepping the question. She was asked by Charles Grassley, do you believe the individual right to keep and bear arms is a fundamental right? She answered, quote, Senator, the Supreme Court has established that individual right to keep and bear arms is a fundamental right, end quote. So what she's saying is, well, the Supreme Court said so. What she's not saying is if you select me and allow me to go to the Supreme Court, I'm going to do my damnedest to change that.
Well, exactly. You notice she did not say that the Constitution establishes that. Even though it's there in black and white, she did not say that the Constitution. She said the Supreme Court. She says, as a sitting federal judge, I am bound to apply faithfully all binding precedents of the D.C. Circuit and of the Supreme Court, including all precedents that pertain to the Second Amendment individual right to keep and bear arms. Now, this was compared to a statement that was made by Sotomayor, where she said she understood. She said, I understand the individual right to fully that the Supreme Court recognized in Heller. Now, mind you, that was very condensed. So what right? She didn't say what individual right they recognized. All she said that I understand what fundamental right was recognized. And that's where she then came down on that's where she then turned around and ruled against against McDonald in that particular case. So what Judge Jackson said in this case was a lot more defined, but yet and still she did not say that she believed the right is conferred by the Constitution, by the framers. She said she believed it was supported by the Supreme Court. Now, having said that, I will say this. She has a background as a public defender, and we've seen when I was working with the Firearms Policy Coalition, we were able to partner with public defenders more than once on legislation that created crimes for individuals simply for being either crimes that were just because the law was difficult to deal with relating to firearms, or because people who possessed a firearm were being treated unfairly. We were able to partner with public defenders a number of times to actually kill or amend legislation in those areas. So I say that to say, while it's doubtful, because of who nominated her, it's doubtful that she'll ever be pro-gun. There's a chance that there might be some opportunities to get her to come our way on some things. I'm not betting on it. But
no.
It's more of a possibility than I've seen with any other leftist judge that has been nominated.
And she certainly is leftist.
No doubt.
My hope is this: that something happens that delays the process until after the November election. And
I honestly don't see that happening. It's so early. It would have to be something monumental. Part of it, you'd have to see, but put it this way, you'd have to see at least one Democrat would have to not be able to be available in order to be able to do the hearings. And then you'd have to have Republicans who've already demonstrated that they believe that a president gets to nominate someone, whatever their ideology is, right? They should get to nominate them, and they should get their selection. My concern with that is simply this: is not so much where's your political ideology. My issue is, what is your judicial philosophy? Do you believe that your job as a Supreme Court justice is to rule on cases based on existing law and the Constitution and how those are applied? Or do you believe your job is to right wrongs as you see it, to promote justice or undo injustices as you see it? That is judicial activism. That is what most Democrat appointed justices are interested in doing, and that's what they want to do from the bench. They're not there. They believe that interpreting the Constitution has nothing. It's like, look, whatever I believe it should be is how I'm going to rule, and I'm going to start with that, and I'm going to back into that decision, even if it means that I do not have the law on my side.
Diane over on the Facebook side says she also blames Congress for some of the laws. She brought Congress up a lot. Diane, thank you for watching that. You are a better person than I just couldn't have handled it.
Well, but here's the thing. She's right. I mean, Congresses are the ones who pass laws. And if it's a bad law, it's not the job of the judiciary to rewrite the law. It's their job to say whether or not it's constitutional or not. If it's not constitutional, you strike it down, you tell them do it over. Right? If it's constitutional, then it's constitutional. But you don't do like what Justice Roberts did with Obamacare, and you say, well, okay, well, it's illegal under the Commerce Clause, but it's okay as a tax, even though they never said it was a tax. Right? Yeah. You don't get to do that. That's not your job.
Yeah, when they were running Obamacare through, they were very careful to say this is not a tax.
Right. And the reason we're talking about this, folks, is not because, wherever you guys are at on Obamacare or whatever. The point is that there's a reason we have separation of powers. And laws are made, laws are written, laws are amended in the legislative branch. They're enforced in the executive branch, and they are, what's the word I'm looking for? They're judged, right?
Adjudicated.
And interpreted in the judicial branch. And it's not your job to rewrite laws. And unfortunately, many Democrat legislators or judges, Democrat appointed justices, believe it is in fact. And Congress writes these vague laws, right? And this is one of the things that's a real problem. They write these laws that are very, very vague, right? They don't put in a lot of the detailed language because they're not interested in spending the time to really get to know and understand the issues. And so then they send it over to the executive, and then once in the executive, it goes to a department where there are these faceless, nameless, unappointed, unaccountable bureaucrats who then start to provide definitions and interpretations, basically rewriting the law so that it can then be enforced. And that happens in state legislature after state legislature, and it happens at the federal level as well. And that is a huge amount. I mean, we saw it happen with bump stocks. We've seen it happen with suppressors. We're seeing it happening right now with resetting triggers, where you have an executive agency, the ATF, is being tasked with rewriting laws so that they can go after products or things that actually are not illegal under the law, but because they changed the interpretation of the law, redefining, for example, things like machine guns, now all of a sudden it's illegal.
Yeah, you're going to have to. I have a worry that very soon you're going to have to go file a 4473 when you go to Walmart and buy rubber bands. I mean,
pretty much. Yeah.
So we're running out of time, Craig. Before we take off, what's been going on in the rundown, and where can people find you, man?
Folks, the rundown is phenomenal. It comes on just before this program does. You can find us either at the rundown on Facebook. You can find us at 2A News on Facebook and on YouTube. OpsLens actually runs, so it runs an hour later on OpsLens, the same time as this program does. So, I don't want to take away from Paul, but that's where you'll find us there as well. Anyway, we're just having a good time. Me and Mike are always talking it up. We're there where you find us is we do a rundown of news stories for the day. Two guys bringing it to you from the left coast and from the right coast. And we talk about we say 2A news and conservative views.
Very cool. Well, Craig, it's always fun talking with you, man. I love having you on every time you come here, man.
All right, my friend. Hey, you take care.
All right, folks, do join us 5 p.m. Central Time the rest of the week, and Saturday coming up. If I can get my calendar to cooperate with me, we will see. But we've got a really cool weekend edition of the Bullet coming up this weekend. We have got Beth Alcazar coming back. Dan Waz and Tony Simon is going to be our panel for the Weekend Bullet. That is Saturday at noon Central Time. That does it for today. Please do come join us again tomorrow at 5 p.m. Thanks again, everyone.